there, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 302 and I'm Lisa, also known as Fibernymph. Today is Tuesday, January 8th. Happy New Year! This is my first regular episode of 2019. I did do two other uploads already this year though. The first one was one where it was a trip through my whips, all my works in progress. So that was the Wander Through My Whips video, I believe I called it. You can check that out. It was just sort of a way for me to inventory all of the projects that I have on the needles and to help determine what I really wanted to focus on with my knitting this year. I'll be referring to that a little bit throughout the podcast here and there. If you would like to join me in a chance to finish off any whips you might have and you'd just like some camaraderie and some encouragement for that, I have started a thread in the Fibernymph Dye Works group on Ravelry. It's called Whipstravaganza. So pop in over there and just join me for the task of finishing up some whips. You know, we can get some great projects, reclaim some needles and project bags, and, you know, maybe get some gifts knit if there were projects that were going to be gifts. It's all good. So that was one of the videos that I put up. The other one I just recorded yesterday and uploaded this morning, and that is, it's only about 15 minutes long. It's an informational video about the 2019 Monthly Makes program, which is the program that is taking over where the Conversion Rewards program last year left off. They are two completely separate programs. I'm not doing Conversion Rewards again this year. It was great last year, but we're moving on to a new program this year, and that's what that video was all about. It'll give you all of the details. There's also a very detailed post in the Fibernymph Dye Works group called 2019 Monthly Makes Info and Chatter. That's what that thread is called. So feel free to check that out. Essentially, it's another way for you to earn some shiny new yarn or fiber by using up your Fibernymph Dye Works stash that you currently have. The program this year, however, does make it, I think, a little bit more accessible to more people. There are multiple ways that you might earn or win yarn or fiber. So I'm not going to go into great detail about it because, like I said, there is a whole video out there about it and a thread, but I really hope you'll check it out and come in and join us because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed last year's program, and I really am looking forward to this year's. If you have any questions about the program, feel free to post them in that thread on Ravelry, or you can email me, fibernymph@gmail.com. That address, by the way, is actually the very best way to get a hold of me about anything you might want to correspond with me about, but most especially if you have any questions regarding anything having to do with my business, Fibernymph Dye Works, please email me. Social media contacting, like messages, tend to get overlooked for longer periods of time or just not seen at all. So email is definitely the best way to reach me. And I promise I will get back to you even if it takes me a little while. One other kind of administrative thing I wanted to make known, and I feel like maybe I've mentioned this in past episodes, but in case I haven't, or in case it hasn't been clear, I'm no longer uploading the podcast to iTunes. It was an executive decision I made after a lot of thought. There's a lot of reasons behind it. I'm not going to go into them. But YouTube is the only place that this podcast is going to be uploading from now on. Any of the episodes that are already up on iTunes will remain there, but no new ones are going to be going up. Yeah, it's just, that's the way it needs to be. I hope you understand. I'll still be embedding the video on the in the episode threads in the Fibernymph Dye Works group. You can find it directly on YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel on YouTube and get notified whenever new episodes go up. And I hope that really works for everybody because it's going to be the best way I can go forward. All right, that's everything for administrative and intro. So let's get started with the knitting because I do have knitting to talk about this week. I've got some coming up stuff I want to talk to you about. I'm looking at my show notes down here, so that's why I'm turning to the left here. I have prize winners this week also. I've got the prize winner for the One For You, One For Me along that ran in November and December. And I decided to do a prize winner for the Finish That Sweater along. That was a thread that was still back in the other group, the old group, the 90% knitting group. I decided that I think people who finished sweaters in that group last year really deserve to be put in a drawing for a chance to win a prize. So I've got a prize winner for that thread as well. So I will talk about that once I get to the end of all of the 90% stuff and before I go into the 10% stuff. And then there will also be some shop news. So let's get started with the knitting. I have a finished object for you this week, which is super exciting. I actually finished this on January 1st. I love being able to start the new year out with a finished object like really soon into the year. So it was great to be able to do it the first day of the year. And this is my Jingle Jangle socks. Aren't they awesome? Oh my gosh, I love this colorway. This was the 50s retro colorway version. It was not the traditional Christmas version. But I just love them. They turned out lovely. I didn't make the cuff super high. These are only maybe a 5.5 inch cuff, which is fine. That used to be what I always made my socks. In recent history, they've been getting a little longer and longer, but this is plenty long for these socks. And as you can see, I alternated the skeins because they were 2 half skeins that were in the different colors. So I used the teal striping color for the heel and toe on the pink sock and the pink stripe for the heel and toe on this sock. And I just am so happy with them. And it's really fun to have a pair of Christmas socks, brand new and waiting for me for the beginning of next year's holiday season. So that is my first finished object. These were on my bounce base, by the way. There are no more of these skeins left in the shop, and I probably won't be dyeing any more of them up until next year, next fall. So you can look for them then, though, because I do believe I'll bring them back. They were super fun. That's my only finished object this week, but I do have several works in progress. I can say that basically my whips at this point are what is driving my knitting plan at this point in the year. That's not to say I'm not going to be casting on new things, because matter of fact, I do have a new cast on to talk to you about this week too. But I'm really sort of at least focusing in on whips right now, and then I'll see how that goes. So let's talk about some whips. These would be things that you have seen before. They're all kind of scattered here. The first, that was not one. That's the new cast on. Hang on for that. All right. The first one I'm going to show you is my mini maximization shawl. I'm loving this project. So mini maximization is a pattern by Sarah Jordan, and she and I collaborated. She did the pattern and I dyed up the, don't fall off the needles. Okay. I dyed up the yarn sets for this. Now I'm knitting mine out of the blue to purple gradient set. There's also like a warmer color, an autumn kind of set. This was the winter set. She did her sample out of the autumn set. I have both sets still in the shop. There are no more bounce sets of the winter set right now, but there are definitely bedazzled sets, and there are both bounce and bedazzled sets of the autumn set. Both sets are lovely, and I keep thinking of all these different ways I'd like to use up those sets to make different versions of this shawl, which is crazy because I don't need that many versions of this shawl, but there's just so many ways I can think to do this. Anyway, so this is my version. I am using, okay, back up a second. This set takes 12 mini skeins the way it's written. I don't know why I'm holding my arms out like that. Like I'm a chicken. Anyway, 6 semi-solid skeins and then 6 corresponding speckled skeins. So as you can see, I'm using the semi-solid as my main color and then the speckled skeins as my contrast color, the mainly white with the speckles in them. They're short rows and they're super fun to do. Even though they're really long right now, I'm not losing interest. It's just so much fun to watch the color gradient kind of show itself as I go along. Obviously I'm getting fewer and fewer rows out of each set of minis. I've gotten through the first 4 sets of minis. So I only have 2 more sets to go. This will be my next set. Ooh, that one's all. So it's definitely a lighter purple. You're not getting a good color representation of this right now. The light in here is kind of horrible. It's a very nasty day out. It's funny. Right now, I can see blue sky and sunshine. Before I started to record, it was raining like crazy. That's why I'm in here, because I was going to record out in the porch room, but it was raining so hard it was really loud. I didn't want to record out there. So I went into the dining room. I couldn't get the light enough for you to really see anything at all. So I moved in here because this was the best light, and now I've got nice light coming in here, but I've got my overhead light on, which is just giving everything sort of an orangey cast. This is much more white than the yellow it's showing up. Anyway, these will be my next 2 colors, and then there's 1 more set that will go after this. I'm really excited to have this off the needles because this is going to be a show sample for me this year, but it's also just such a fun shawl. I will say I did go through and I wove in all my ends already from the prior sets. I don't usually do that. Well, I weave them in before I block things. I don't usually snip them off, but they were really bothering me. So I went ahead and did that. I'm knitting these on, I believe these are US 4s. Yes, these are my US 4s on my 5-inch Alika interchangeable needle set, which is working out wonderfully. And I know it doesn't look like a whole lot while it's all bunched up on the needles, but it really is a very fun project, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So yeah, that is my first work in progress. My second work in progress is another shawl, and this is the Hedge Witch shawl, which I'm not sure if this was already cast on the last time you saw it, or last time I recorded it or not, because this didn't start until December 22nd. So this actually might be a new cast on for you, seeing it. Hedge Witch shawl knit along is one that Sarah from Fiber Trek and Nicole from the Gentle Knitter podcast are hosting, and a lot of people are taking part in it, and I'm one of them. It was just very cool. Knit along, running from the cold moon in December through the wolf moon in January. Anyway, here is my Hedge Witch shawl. Oh, that's a really good representation of the color, actually. This is a very, it's not quite a rusty red. It's an, it wasn't an overwashed yarn either. This is my yarn too, as I stumble around trying to describe the color. I don't have a colorway name for it yet, which is why I'm stumbling around. It's my iron oxide red colorway, but I guess you could say I saddened it maybe, darkened it up a little bit. Anyway, yeah, that's not accurate. That's a little bright. But anyway, this is a fairly good representation of the color. There we go. I love the texture on this shawl. This is my new Ridge Top yarn in the DK weight. I'm also going to have a fingering weight version of it. I know I keep talking to you about it. It is actually going to go up in the shop this month. But this is the Ridge Top DK. This is a Romney Falkland blend. It's a 3-ply. It is super squishy, and I am loving working with it. It is the perfect yarn for this project, I think. So, anyway, I don't really have much else to say. I'm only, I think, no, I'm not even 8 repeats in. I think maybe I'm 6 repeats in. This is a very large shawl, and it's sort of slow going because I can't manage to memorize the repeat pattern. It's only an 8-row repeat, and every other one is it's just knit, basically. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having fun with it, though, and I'm really enjoying the stitch pattern, the texture, because I love a textured pattern. And this yarn, since it's got a little bit of tooth to it, the texture is just, it's so pleasing, both visually and tactilely. So I'm enjoying it a lot. Okay, so that is my progress on my Hedge Witch, which is in this lovely, nice big Moon Phase bag from Sweet Sparrow Yarns. I was going to say Julie, but that's not the name of her business. Oh, excuse me. That's her name. Okay. Moving on. Arboreal. Arboreal has come out of its seclusion in this project bag where it's been for so long. I actually almost have a completed sleeve. So if you remember, I cast on my arboreal sweater late last winter, basically. It's a pullover. It's written as a pullover. I put steek stitches in it so that I can make it into a cardigan. I did this lovely colorwork yoke, and then I got the body knit, and then I lost steam, and it's been sitting here. But I pulled it out a couple weeks ago, and I restarted, and so I have almost a completed sleeve. I know this looks super short, but honest, I tried it on today, and I'm down to the cuff. I stopped though because, number one, I'm not following the pattern at this point. I'm just doing my own thing. I had both sleeve stitches on needles as my holders, and when I decided to start, I just picked up the number of underarm stitches that seemed reasonable to pick up for the amount of space that was there, and then I started knitting down, and then I just started doing decreases every 6 rows, I think is what I determined would work. It's definitely a roomier sleeve than what I would normally like in a sweater. Matter of fact, at the point where I'm starting the ribbing on the cuff, I was doing decreases the entire way down the sleeve. I suppose I could have done my decreases faster to make it not quite as roomy. I mean, it's not unbearably roomy. It's fine. Here, I'll stick my arm in here so you can kind of see. I mean, it's not like sagging down here or anything, but it's definitely roomier than, say, the sleeve on my antler cardigan is. But I did make those fairly form-fitting, and I did modify the sleeve decreases in that pattern to make that a tighter sleeve. Anyway, I think this will be fine. My only concern about this at this point, I know this looks like it's not near the cuff, but this is not actually how it fits me when I'm wearing it. My only concern about this is that the ribbing is going to be a little looser than I want it to be. I did go down another needle size. I knit the sleeves on 5s. I did the yoke on 6s, and I believe I did the body on 5s, and then I did the sleeve on 5s. I ended up going down to 4s for the cuff. I'm not sure that that was enough. I think I'm going to rip back and do it on 3s. And I also think I'm going to do it on DPNs rather than trying to stretch it out over the 16-inch circular. This is my 3-inch size Leica interchangeable set, which I love. I've been using it a ton, but it's just a little too long for this, and I don't want to stretch the ribbing out as I'm knitting it. So I'm going to go ahead, and I think I'm going to put it on DPNs or 2 circs. I don't know. I have DPNs. I actually have 2 different sets of DPNs. I don't use DPNs very much, but I'm kind of in a mood. So I have wooden ones and I have metal ones. We'll see which ones I choose. I've never used metal DPNs before. This is the only set of them I even own. I don't think I've ever used them for anything, so I don't know. We'll see. But I'm feeling really good about the sweater. It fits so well. Every time I try it on, I'm just so happy with the fit. And I know once I get this first sleeve done, the second one I'll just be able to really fly through, relatively speaking. I don't have a problem with sleeves. Once I start them, I seem to get through them pretty quickly. I have trouble getting started on sleeves. Like when I was at that point where the sweater was just sitting here waiting for me, it's like, it always seems like such a daunting task to get the sleeves started. I don't know why. It's silly. Because I know once I get them started, this is going to fly. And it is. So it would fly even more if it was the only project I was working on. Yeah, clearly it's not the only project I'm working on. But I do want to have the sweater finished for this year because it's winter, even though it's not acting like it. I would really like some snow. I'm going to be very, very upset if we have another mostly snowless winter. At least last year at this time it was super cold. Not that I really want super cold weather right now either. But yeah, I could use some snow. That's a digression. I have socks that I'm working on. If you watch the Whips episode, you'll see that I think I said I had 11 pairs of socks as Whips. I think it's actually closer to 13 pairs maybe, because I found a couple more. Basically what I'm doing with socks, because I'm not in a big sock knitting mode right now. I don't know why. I think it's because I've got all these bigger projects going and that's what I really want to be working on. I took one of my whips and I stuck it in my car, and I'm just going to keep it out there, and that way when I'm out and I have time, like I'm waiting somewhere, or if I'm shopping and I just have a few minutes and I want to relax, I'll sit in my car in a parking lot and I'll knit a little bit on that sock. So I've got a car sock that is just staying out there, and I'll show it to you when I get it done. Then I have another sock that I have taken down to the studio, and I'm going to leave it down there because I occasionally have, down moments where I'm not actively working and I can just sit and I can put a few rows into a sock. I think that's my tactic for socks right this moment. I also have some socks that are just plain vanilla socks that I can have, like if I'm going to a movie or going wherever and I'll, need something easy to knit on. So that's my sock issue. But anyway, I do have a new cast on, and this is actually out of hand spun, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Although at the moment, this is also, I'm using my Leica interchangeables, the 3 inches, but I had the US 4s on here, and then I decided to use those for that sleeve. So I took them off of here. That's why they have these little caps on. But I'll be putting them back on since obviously I'm not using those anymore on that sweater. Anyway, this is the Sockhead Cow by Kelly McClure. And I've knit the Sockhead hat, and I've knit hats like the Sockhead hat, even though they don't follow that pattern. It's pretty simple. But I'd seen that she had come out with a Sockhead cowl as well, and I thought, that looks fun. I love cows, and this is a long cowl. So it's one that you can pull up over your head, almost like a snoot, or pull it up way far over your face. And I have had this ball of hand spun since 2012. That's when I spun it, and I put it in a ball fairly soon after that because I was going to use it right away, and then I never did. So it's been sitting like this for quite a while, and I just really wanted to use it. These colors are amazing. This was some Hiwassee Creek Dye Works fiber. I believe it was Polworth. She's not dyeing anymore as far as I can tell. But yeah, these colors are just crazy. I love this green. That bright, bright acid green makes me so happy. Anyway, this is actually a project that I cast on for the Downseller Studio Slay the Stash 2019. I did not participate in that last year as a participant. I was a sponsor, and I'll be a sponsor for it again this year as well. But I thought, this would be a great way for me to use up some stash as well. And particularly, I really want to knit more with my hand spun this year, so I decided to use the skein. The rules in that program don't say anything specifically about hand spun because your skeins are supposed to be brand new, never broken into or anything, which this one technically wasn't, but it was already in a ball. Nobody's told me that this disqualifies me yet. If they do, whatever, I'll at least have a cowl out of it, and I'll pick something different next year or next month to use. But anyway, this is what I'm using this year, and this month. And I love how it's knitting up because I don't remember how I spun this. I mean, it's a 2-ply. I don't think I spun it with any particular plan in mind. I don't remember how I split the braid. I don't think I split it like down the middle lengthwise. I think I must have broken it in half, or else I just spun it, end to end and had 2 bobbins and then just plied them and let them fall where they may. I don't think I had any particular plan because that was still fairly early on in my spinning life, and I don't think I was really thinking about things like that. At any rate, I just love how it turned out because I'm getting these big stripes of these marled colors, and then every once in a while I'll get a stripe that is just the same color applied onto itself. I love it. Absolutely love it. It's making me so happy. And it's really squishy. But Polworth is a squishy fiber. So that is that project. And this is also going to sort of be one of my contributions to Fibertown. Emily is doing Hand Spun Winter again this year. So I've been posting about this in there as well. So that's if you're knitting with hand spun or spinning hand spun, you can participate in her along her cow. I guess it's a cow. She's just calling it the Hand Spun Winter. So anyway, those are all of my projects that I'm working on. And I'm really happy with all of them. They're all bringing me joy right now. So that's a good thing. I have also put some stripes in my Granny Stripes blanket, but that's so hit or miss. Yeah. I did show that, though, on the... I think I showed that. Did I show that? I'm pretty sure I showed that in my whips video. I have not done any spinning. I will, but it just hasn't happened yet. As far as what is coming up on my knitting and spinning and fibery horizon, this year, like I said, my whips inventory is really what is sort of dictating my knitting plans for right now, at least what I really want to focus on. I do have other knitting that I want to start, and again, like I did cast something on. But what's really interesting about my knitting aspirations for new projects this year is I'm finding that they're more yarn-driven than specific project-driven. Like this cowl, I mean, I wanted to knit with that yarn specifically. It's not that I really wanted to make that cowl. I mean, I'm happy I'm making it, but that's not what was driving it. I wanted to use that yarn. And looking over here at my wall o' yarn, I know I have certain things that I definitely would like to use this year. I am hoping later today to go through my stash, and I'm going to pull out specific lots of yarn and skeins of yarn that I want to focus on this year. And then and this is crazy. I feel like this is crazy, but I think it's actually going to make sense for me. I'm going to then pack up the rest of the yarn that is in all of these cubbies over here. I'm going to pack the rest of it up in some bins, and I'm going to store it. I'm going to put it up in the attic. It'll all be safe, you know, in sealed plastic bins. Nothing will be able to get into it and eat it or anything. But I feel like sometimes the fact that I come in here and I look at my whole stash, even if I have a specific project in mind, I sometimes get a little overwhelmed. I mean, my stash is big. It's not as big as some people's, but it's definitely bigger than others. And I love it. A lot of my stash is yarn that I've dyed. So it's not really stuff I've purchased, but it's stuff that I've dyed. A lot of times when I do like an exclusive colorway or a club colorway, I always save a skein of that for me. I don't always end up using it, and sometimes it ends up in the shop as a, you know, dyer's secret stash kind of yarn. But I tend to at least save it for a while because I think, oh, well, I may never dye this again, so I'd like to have it. And then there's other skeins that are just single skeins of sock yarn that I've gotten from other indie dyers that I like. I've got lots of sweater lots, and then I've got lots and lots of fiber. You know, along with my goals for this year of knitting, my spinning goals primarily are to finish my combo spin and to finish processing and spinning that BFL Gotland fleece bunny that I have. Those are my two main spinning goals for this year. Anything beyond that will be extra bonus spinning. In the back of my mind, I think, oh, it would be really nice to spin at least like one other bump or one other bat per month too. And that would be great. I just don't know that I'll actually get to do that. I'm already a week into January and haven't spun anything at all. So I don't know. We'll see. But I feel like if what I'm seeing visually in front of me is not so big and so overwhelming, that I might be able to focus more on what I have. And, you know, I remember when my kids were little, I don't know if you as parents, any of you might have ever done this, but if you ever end up in a situation where your kids have just gotten a ridiculous number of toys, this was especially something that happened around the holidays or their birthdays. You know, all the grandparents and all the friends and family and everybody is buying your kids new gifts, new toys, and it's just crazy. I used to take a bunch of toys, especially older toys that they weren't really playing with as much anymore. I'd put them in boxes and store them. And like a few months later or 6 months later, once they were bored with the new stuff, I'd pull the old things out and it was like Christmas all over again. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about for my stash. I think if I put some of it away and focus on what I leave out, then later this year I can go back and I can pull some out and it'll be like, this is awesome. I forgot I had this. This was wonderful. I'll use this now. That's my theory. I'm going to try that. I don't know how it'll go. but I want to try that. So we'll see. That's my tactic for right now. I'll keep you posted. I think that's everything I was going to say about my knitting and spinning aspirations for this year at this point. I'm really just trying to take things on a slower basis or on a shorter term basis rather than trying to say, this is what I'm going to do this entire year. I'm trying to keep things a little bit more contained because I end up getting derailed. I did look at my 2018 knitting goals, fiber goals, the other day. They're out in the other room. And I feel like I did okay on some, and some I didn't touch. You know, that's the way it goes. So I'm trying not to set myself up to have another list that I'll look at next year at this time and say, I didn't do that great. I'd like to have smaller chunks of goals to work on, shorter term. Aside from that, though, I did mention this several times in the past. I do want to work on expanding into other crafty areas, not, you know, obviously any big time way, but I just want to spend time doing other things other than knitting and spinning all the time. You know, when it's my business, it's interesting because I love the fact that my business is related to the hobby that I also love, but then it almost makes the hobby that I love so much part of my business. It's very hard to disentangle the two. So, you know, I like the aspect of being able to try out other things just for the fact that I like to try new things. And, you know, when I was at Rhinebeck last year, I showed you some of those kits that I got for some other crafts. I mean, they're still sort of fiber related, but, you know, I've got a cabinet over here full of scrapbooking stuff and rubber stamps and things. Those are crafts I used to do and haven't touched in a very long time. I'd love to be able to get back to those, at least even in small ways. So there's things like that that I would like to do. I think I'll just share those with you, though, as I do them. Maybe kind of like a different one each week or something. I don't know. I did have one thing I was going to show you because it's new. Although it's not new to me as something to do. I used to, back when I was really big into rubber stamping, and I used to like make my own greeting cards and birthday cards and stuff a lot. I had a set of colored pencils that were watercolor pencils. And basically you colored with them and then you'd use like a water brush, which is like a brush that's a tube. You fill it with water and you can use that. You could use a regular paintbrush dipped in water too. And you go over what you've colored with those colored pencils, the watercolor pencils, and it makes it look like watercolor paint. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I used to love to paint with my watercolor paints. Do you remember like the Crayola, I don't know, palettes? There were these long rectangular boxes and they had like maybe a dozen colors in them. There was also the ones that had more, like the smaller ones. I loved those, and I'm sure they still make them. I remember my kids had them. But anyway, I would watercolor for hours as a kid, and then when I did it with rubber stamping, I remember enjoying that too, but I've gotten away from it. I don't even think I have those pencils anymore. If I do, I have no idea where they're at after the move. Who knows? They could be in a box somewhere up in the attic. But anyway, I can sometimes be a little susceptible to advertising on social media. And I know on Instagram and probably Facebook, I was seeing these ads for these watercolor markers. And I kept looking at them and thinking, I don't need those. I do not need those. What am I going to do with those? And I resisted them for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then finally, I actually went on Amazon to see if I could find them a little less expensively. And I did. And I bought them. So these are Arteza water-based ink is what they're called. Real brush pens. So the pens themselves are not watercolor, but they're water-based ink. So that when you use them, it does come with that water brush that I was telling you about. So this is what a water brush looks like. So you fill this part with water, it unscrews, and then you've got the tip that's like a brush, basically. It's different bristles, so it is a brush. And then you just go over what you did with the markers. When I first got them in the mail last week, I tried it just on regular paper, and it did not work at all. And I'm like, this doesn't work. This was a scam. And then when I was at Walmart yesterday, I went over to the craft, like the paper crafty section, and I picked up a little notebook that is, well, this is mixed media paper. It's not specifically watercolor paper, but it's pretty much like watercolor paper. It works. So I was playing with it this morning. So, you know, I did what every kid does whenever they get something like this and they play with, they draw a heart and their initials and maybe a flower or something. And if you're, you know, a preteen or a teenager, you're probably writing your initials plus somebody else's initials. It's what we do, right? Anyway, I just played with it, but you can just see how it kind of smooshes everything together like a watercolor. It's so much fun. This is totally messy, and I am not an artist like this by any stretch of the imagination. Like, drawing is not my forte. I'm not good at it. I do not draw anything that's realistic looking very well, but it's so much fun. Same way I used to love to color in coloring books. And I did buy some of those adult-oriented coloring books. I mean, not like adult coloring books, you know what I mean. But like the flowers and the Zentangle kind of coloring books. And I never really got too into them. But I'm kind of wondering if maybe I could use these markers and the watercolors and try it. So we'll see. See where that goes. But this is something I'm going to play with. Just, you know, just for some extra playing. I try to explain this to my husband sometimes, because he's very different. He's very, very right-brained. He's creative in a lot of ways, but he's just very linear thinking, and he doesn't understand the concept of playing to help spur creativity. And so I try to explain to him that as a creative person, like, my work is creativity. You know, as a dyer or a yarn dyer, that is what I'm doing all the time. And when you do that all the time, you can get burned out, just like you can get burned out in any other work, you know, area of work, or type of work. So I kind of seek out other creative activities that will help refill me and re-energize me and reinvigorate that creative urge in me, I guess. And then that kind of carries over into my work, and I'm refreshed and I can do my work. Not that I was in any danger of burning out, but that's the thing. You don't wait till you're burning out to try to ward it off. You try to ward it off ahead of time. So, all right, I feel like I'm starting to babble now, so I'm going to stop. And we're going to jump to the prize winners for the One For You, One For Me along. So that was a knit along that ran through, November and December. And the whole concept was you were to post, each of your entries had to be one thing you knit for somebody else plus one thing you knit for yourself. They didn't have to be the same thing, but that's how it went. One for you, one for me. And so we ended up with 57, no, I think we ended up with like 56 entries. I don't know. The first post and the last post in the thread were mine. And so I did random number generator between 2 and whatever the next to the last number was. I don't have that written down at this point. But random number generator chose post number 51, and that was Maria, who is Seductive Berry, and she is from Colorado. So congratulations, Maria. Maria's very active in our groups. And she knit the Fernet Branca. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's a sweater by Thea Coleman for herself. It is gorgeous. Oh my gosh, you got to go look at this post and this sweater. It's beautiful, stunning. And then she knit a bun hat for, I'm assuming maybe a friend. Someone named Leslie is getting the bun hat or has already received it. So anyway, thank you so much to everybody who participated in that knit along. And congratulations, Maria. I am going to show you what the prize choices are in just a minute, so hang on, because I'm going to announce the other prize winner first. Okay, so again, the Finish That Sweater along that was running over in the 90% knitting group all of last year. I went through that thread, and I went through the pictures, and there were 28 pictures of finished sweaters. So I did a random number generator from 1 to 28, and random number generator gave me number 20, so I counted through all of the finished sweater pictures, and the 20th finished sweater was from post number 97, and that is Linda Dawn 64, who is Linda, and she's from the UK, and she finished a beautiful colorwork sweater, which was the Emmeline pullover. So congratulations, Linda. Thank you so much for taking part in that year-long knit-along, for however long you were a part of it. And congratulations on finishing your sweater, but you are also a prize winner. So let me show you the prizes that you guys, Maria and Linda, can pick from. I have 3 prize choices here. So whenever you guys see this video, please message me on Ravelry and tell me your top 2 prize choices, and whichever one is available, I will get that out to you. And I also need your full name and mailing address, of course. So your 3 prize choices are, one is a sock blank, one of my sock blanks. This is one of the sparkly sock blanks, and this is basically a tonal tealy, kind of turquoisey, peacocky blues with really dark peacocky blue speckles. So that is one of the prize options. The other 2 prize options are skeins of my cozy worsted weight base. The one is on the Winter Rumpus colorway, or is in the Winter Rumpus colorway. So that's all the nice dark pinks, dark greens into some light blue, and it also has speckles, and there's sort of a reddish orange in there too. Again, not showing up super great in this light. This is actually, I think there's some of this left in the shop too, maybe not, I don't remember, but you can see pictures of it there. And then the third option is actually a one of a kind. This is sort of one of those dye darlings that I've had in the shop lately, where it's a skein that I've just sort of used some leftover dye at the end of the day and made fun one of a kinds. So this is this one. This one has a lot of white space on it, but it's also got some really fun bright colors. This might have been a bunch of colors left over from a batch of my Dyer's Favorite 2018 colorway that I've been doing. I don't think it has all the colors, but it has a lot of them. So that's the third choice. So Maria and Linda, please let me know what your first top two choices are with regard to these 3 yarn choices, and I will get whichever one is available to you out to you once I get your message and your mailing info. So thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to 10% now. Today I'm going to talk about books. I know I said I was going to talk about my life goals a little bit too when I talked last week about knitting goals, or when I did my recap of last year, but I think I'm going to not talk about life goals because, again, right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to keep things in a shorter term focus, and I'm sort of at the point where instead of making a whole year's worth of goals, I'm kind of just going month by month trying to build a habit each month, 1 or 2. They always say it takes 28 days to build a habit or to form a good habit. Bad habits are way faster. Anyway, so I set a couple habits for myself for January. They're not super exciting, I don't think. In January, I'm trying to teach myself to drink more water because I do not drink enough water. And I actually put an app on my phone. There's a bunch of them out there that will remind you to drink water like once an hour. I'm supposed to be drinking 98.8 ounces of water a day. I did that 2 days in a row. I must have peed like 50 times throughout the day and night. I do not recommend that if you would like to sleep well. So I've kind of cut back, but I'm still drinking way more water than I had been up to that point. So drinking more water in January. And the other thing is I'm trying to get myself in a habit of not having to rush as much. And that is just basically time management skills, you know. I know what I need to do. I'm just trying to do it better. So those are my 2 things that I'm really focusing on as far as my life goals for January. So I will keep you posted I'll let you know at the end of the month how that's going or how that went. Okay, but anyway, I was going to talk about books. That's what I first said. I made a post on my personal Instagram account, the Fibernymph account, about all the books that I listened to last year. I don't really get a chance to read, like physically read hard copy books too much anymore, but I'm always listening to audiobooks. I listen to them in the car. I listen to them while I'm working. I love audiobooks. They're the best thing in the world as far as I'm concerned. Well, not really. You know what I mean. They're awesome. I love audiobooks. Out of all the books that I read last year, I really enjoyed most of them. The one that I have to say I did not enjoy very much was Elizabeth Gilbert's The Signature of All Things. It was very long. It was like 22 hours long, I want to say. And I found it to be overwhelmingly depressing through most of it. It didn't end horribly. I think if it would have been depressing and just long and to get through and then had a horrible ending, I would have wanted to just kill myself. Not literally, obviously, but you know, it ended okay, but it wasn't my cup of tea. However, the books that I really enjoyed the most last year, well, the only other fiction book I listened to was Sourdough by Robin Sloan. It was a very quirky book. I think I probably already mentioned it on the podcast back when I listened to it, but it was very fun. It's sort of a sci-fi-ish sort of quirky. I mean, there were sci-fi elements, I would say, to it. I don't know. Maybe that's not even accurate, but it was a fun book. Check it out if you like weird, quirky, off-the-wall kind of fiction. My favorite book, otherwise, nonfiction, obviously. The rest of them were nonfiction. And I don't know if this is my favorite just because it was the last one I listened to last year or not, but I really enjoyed Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah is very funny to begin with, and to listen to someone tell his life story growing up as a mixed racial person in South Africa during apartheid, you would think that might be hard to do comedically, but he had a knack for being able to put his comedic touch on that. Even though it was, parts of it were very serious and very, hard to listen to. I learned a lot that I did not know about what apartheid even was. I mean, I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what it was about. And so I learned a lot, and it was just very, very good. I really enjoyed listening to that, as much as you can listen to a book about something that's hard like that, hard topics. But yeah, so those were my readings. That's my reading I'm going to talk about from last year. This year, I've already finished one book, The Year of Living Danishly by Helen Russell, I think the author's name was. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was way better than what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to kind of be warm and fuzzy, I learned how to be all hygge and everything, and it wasn't. It was so not that. It was about this, the author and her husband. He got a job offer in Denmark, and so they ended up moving to Denmark temporarily, and I think they were there for 2 years. At the end, obviously the book was her first year there, and just the cultural stuff, and that was what was very interesting, because by trade she's an author, and she had worked in magazine writing, and so she was doing a lot of research and doing freelancing while she was there, but then she compiled this into this book, and it was just so interesting learning all of these social statistics and customs and cultural stuff about Denmark. I don't really know anything about Denmark, so it was very cool. I really enjoyed it, and she has a wonderful sense of humor as well, that kind of dry British wit, and it was great. I enjoyed that book, and right now I am listening to Becoming by Michelle Obama, and it is fabulous. Regardless of politics, I would recommend this book to anybody. Michelle Obama is just a very intelligent woman, and she is telling her story so well, and I love listening to her. She reads her own story as well as the author of that other book, the Danish book. The author did not read that book. I kind of prefer when nonfiction books are read by the author, because I feel like that gives it a little something extra. But since I don't know the author of that book, it probably didn't matter much. But obviously everybody knows who Michelle Obama is. And yeah, I'm halfway through it, and I'm kind of pacing myself because I'm enjoying it so much, and I don't want to have it over too soon. So anyway, that is my reading so far this year. Okay, shop news. Let's jump to that right now. I'm back in the studio, and I'm dyeing after having taken a good bit of time off, or at least a good bit of downtime. I wasn't completely off over the holidays, but I did take enough time away from the studio that I feel refreshed. So that's been awesome. But I'm back at it, and I'm having a good time. And I'm having my first regular shop update of 2019 this coming Friday, which is the 11th. It'll be at 6 p.m. Eastern. It's not going to be a particularly large update, but I think it's got some fun things in it, so let me show you. First off, there will be more skeins of my Dyer's Favorite 2018 sets. There are actually still a few of the original listing in the shop now. They're all dyed up. They were originally dyed to order. They're in there now, the ones that were left. I think there's 2 on my Bonafide base, and there's 1 extra that I ended up with in Bounce, so that's listed in the shop right now as well. So this is a 7-stripe colorway. My 7 favorite dye colors that I used in 2018, I put them all together in 1 self-striping colorway, and then each self-striping skein is coming with a 20-gram mini that is speckled with all those same colors. So those are in the shop, but in addition to those ones from the original listing, I'm going to have another batch which was also supposed to just refresh that listing, but as I was dyeing it, I goofed. I read my dye notes incorrectly, so I have the other batch has all the same colors. Like the stripes will be in all the same colors. They just won't be in the exact same order that they were in the first batch. So I am going to discount them just a couple bucks because they're not exactly like the first batch. And I will put the striping pattern mock-up as that second batch is, so you'll know how it'll stripe too. There's nothing wrong with the yarn other than the fact that it's not in the same order as the first batch. It still looks perfectly fine. You've got 7 colors. You can mix them up any which way and they look great. But just so you know, if you bought one the first time and you get one the second time, they are going to stripe up differently. Once I do a third batch, I'm going to go back to the first striping lineup, and that's the one I'll stick with. But again, I just goofed when I was reading my list. I read it wrong, and that's what happened. So anyway, there will be more. I know some people are waiting for it to go up in some specific bases like Cozy and what was the other base? Somebody was asking, maybe for Heavenly? I don't remember. I don't have those bases this time, but I will in the third run of the colorway. I will put some different bases up that I haven't had it up in yet. Alright, so there's that. Then I have a new colorway, and I am loving this. I've not officially given it a name yet. I'm playing with the name of 3 Hours of Sunshine. And this was kind of inspired by that A Year of Living Danishly book, because in the wintertime she was talking about how there's so little sunlight in Denmark. I really, really wanted to dye with this color, and that looks way darker and brighter than it is in real life in that light. Here, let's go back here. This is my Warm Honey color, and it is one of my favorites from last year. It's in this game too. I just love this color, and I had this colorway playing in my mind, and this is what I came up with. It's this wonderful faded variegated colorway that has this wintry purple that fades into this wintry blue, and then there's the light gray, wisp gray in there, very wintry, and then you've got just this pop of the Warm Honey gold. You know, it's not all through the skein, it's just that little bit, and it's like that 3 hours of sunshine you get in the depth of winter. Even here in Pittsburgh. I mean, we get more technically than 3 hours of daylight a day, but it's pretty dark. So this is the colorway that I wanted to play with, and I hope you like it. So we'll call it 3 Hours of Sunshine. In addition to this, I dyed it up on my Sunshine base only. Ironically, that was not actually intentional. It's on my Sunshine base. I also dyed up semi-solid skeins of Warm Honey on my Sunshine base. And because I wanted to, I dyed up some Warm Honey on my fluff base too, which is the Kid Mohair and Silk base. So you could use all 3 of these together in something. You could put that fluff together with 3 Hours of Sunshine. You could put it together with the semi-solid and have that. This is depth dyed, so it's tonal in that it has color on color speckles and texturing with the same gold, just heavier bits of it. It's not showing. Oh, there, you can see a good spot of it right there. Yeah. So there will be limited quantities. I think I have 4 of each of these to put in the shop. Then I'll have some fiber. I was doing some special orders of fiber, and some of them took more than one try to get correct. So this is what I've got for you. There's these 2 skeins, or braids. These are the same colors, they're just done differently. This is a gradient, and I'm not giving these names because they're all just one of a kinds. But this is some really soft, like sand, a very soft mauve into a soft kind of green, and then into a soft blue. And those same colors in here that are all just kind of color pop speckles. This one also has some peach in it. These are on Falkland. Then I have a couple, no, I think I just have one of these. This is a BFL braid, no. This is Polworth silk, I think. I don't know, I'll have to check my notes. Anyway, of rhodochrosite and denim. And then I have a couple braids of BFL silk in rhodochrosite and eggplant. So that'll be some fiber going into the shop. And then lastly, I have a fun new accessory that I'm putting in the shop. And these, if you did the Merry Month of Minis sets, if you bought one of those, you would have gotten these as one of your extras. But this is a little tin that has 10 bulb stitch markers in them that I am putting together. And the bulb stitch markers are 2 of each of 5 different colors. I know you probably can't see them super well right here. I love bulb stitch markers. I use them all the time. They work really well as regular stitch markers, but they also work as progress keepers, and I just think they're great. And I love the metallic colors. So there's 5 different colors, 2 each. They're going to be super affordable, just little extras. So if you're ordering something, you want to throw one of these into your order, it won't add to the shipping at all if you're buying it with other things. And the shipping will be pretty minimal if you're getting them by themselves. They're also great for swaps or something. So anyway, that's everything that I'm going to be putting into the shop this week. I will give you a heads up. I keep talking about my new non-superwash yarn that will be coming to the shop this month. It's going to be going up in its own dedicated update before the end of the month. I will probably do a special video introducing that ahead of time. I'm still working on establishing colors. There's going to be a set palette of colors that I'm going to be doing on those bases, or on that base. It's going to be in a DK and a fingering weight base, so it's 2 different versions of it. Just because non-superwash yarn dyes up so very, very differently than superwash, so it needs to be its own little family of colorways, and I'm still working on finalizing those. So stay tuned. I hope to have more news on that for you within the next week or so. I'm so excited about that, and like I said, I am loving knitting with the DK version of it. It's a Romney Falkland blend. It's so much fun. I love it. So squishy. Anyway, I don't want to talk anymore about that since I really don't have it to show you yet, but I just wanted to let you know that that will be coming up really, really soon because I've been mentioning it for a long time now. Lastly, I am scheduling my year as far as shows go. My first show will be in February here in Pittsburgh. It'll be Indie Knit and Spin on the 23rd back at the Ace Hotel. I had to think for a second. The Ace Hotel, that's on the 23rd of Pittsburgh, and it's back on a Saturday this time, not a Sunday. And then I have a new show that I've never done before coming up in April, and that is the Allentown Fiber Festival, which is going to be on April 13th and 14th at the Merchant Square Mall. I've never vended that show before. I'm super excited. I was so happy to have gotten into it. So if you're out in the eastern part of Pennsylvania and any other drivable areas around there, you might want to come to that show, and I will be happy to see you if you do. That's everything for this week, and I hope to be back with you soon, within the next week or so. So take care. Happy crafting. Bye.